everyone, my name is Nur Shahira binti Asman with metric number 295641. Our group will be present based on article Why Activity-Based Costing is the Thinking Behind the Traditional Costing in Malaysia by Devagana Rasya. I will be explaining introduction for ABC and traditional costing. We go to ABC costing first. Activity-based costing is a method of assigning indirect costs to products and services based on the activity they require. ABC costing does not vary with value, however might differ with some other measure of activity. There is no change in the short run because these costs are correlated with supplying the capacity essential to carry out the manufacturing operations, marketing operations, or administrations. Okay, we move on to traditional costing. Traditional costing approach is where only the unit level drives assign costs to products. Traditional costing was based on labor hours or machine hours, which are hard to reveal the actual costs and effective relationship between indirect costs and individual costs. Carsten 2002 also pointed out that approach of the activity-based costing (ABC) is trying to allocate overhead costs to cost objects more precisely than the traditional cost system or traditional costing. Traditional cost and content focus on what was actually spent, whereas activity-based methods examine what was actually accomplished. From their perspective, it was considerably easier to identify opportunity to reduce costs and enhance performance while preserving the standard. Activity-based costing (ABC) varies from traditional costing in terms of the quantity and variety of cost driver, as well as the number, the size of cost pools, according to Shinan and Don 2007. The overall expenses connected to an activity was called the activity cost pool. Meanwhile, a cost driver was an element that directly affected the price and effectiveness of the activity. These articles compare activity-based costing (ABC) model and traditional costing method in Malaysia. The manufacturing and service sector adapt activity-based costing is compute the price and output of activity, resource and cost-related items. It can be viewed as an alternative model to traditional cost-based accounting system. The findings of this study showed that most operation managers through their current cost system were sufficient for making decisions. Operation managers occasionally through their cost system were more efficient than those of their competitors. Although it was determined that activity-based costing method were somewhat more useful, no pertinent literature was discovered that suggests that the firm's internal or external environment had any bearing on the cost system the firm chose to adapt.
Hi, my name is Tia Alisha binti Ahmad Elmi. My numbometry is 294,664. Today, in my part, I'm going to talk about sanitary ware companies in Turkey based on this case study. In today's global competitive landscape, organizations strive to maintain their competitiveness by accurately calculating costs. Traditional cost accounting systems often fail to provide accurate cost information, as we know. It leads to cost distortions. Activity-based costing (ABC) emerged as an alternative method that assigns costs to activities using multiple cost drivers, resulting in more accurate cost calculation. This paper presents a case study illustrating the implementation of ABC in a leading sanitary ware company and compare its result with a traditional costing method. So, what is activity-based costing? Activity-based costing is a cost accounting methodology that measures the cost and performance of activities, resource, and cost object. It analyzes the usage of organization resource by activities and link the cost of these activities to the output they generate. Unlike traditional costing system, ABC employ cost driver to measure activities performed, such as unit produced, labor hours, equipment time, and more. By capturing the true cost associated with activities, ABC reduces the risk of cost distortion and enable the identification of value added and non-value added. As you can see, the case study presented in this section focuses on the implementation of activity-based costing in a leading sanitary ware company in Turkey. The company has a production capacity of 6,800 tons and follow common process in its operation. The process include bulk preparation, pressure casting, classical casting, glazing, tunnel over treatment, and packaging. The company had been using traditional costing for the cost calculation, which aggregates cost and is suitable for a single homogeneous product. However, traditional costing was not providing accurate result for cost allocation in this case. To implement ABC, the company follows several steps. Firstly, the activity involved in the product process were identified, such as engineering, machining, inspection, molding, drilling, rework, glazing, and packaging. The costs associated with each activity were determined, including labor costs, overhead costs such as rent, power, depreciation, and other conversion costs. The activity were then matched with appropriate cost drivers such as processing time, numbers of holes, number of output, total processing time, and area of allocation. Timesheets were prepared to track the labor time spent on each activity, and the necessary correction was made. The wage data was obtained from the accounting department to determine the labor costs associated with each activity. The company also examined the amount of each activity consumed by the product to calculate product cost accurately. The cost of the activity were consumed by the product was summed up to obtain the product cost precisely. In this section, a comparative analysis is conducted between activity-based costing and traditional costing methods. The purpose is to highlight the strengths and weaknesses of traditional costing and demonstrate the advantage of using ABC. As we know, traditional costing systems typically trace direct materials and labor costs directly to the product, while indirect costs are allocated based on the arbitrary measures such as direct labor hours or machine hours. This approach often leads to cost distortions and inaccurate product costs. In contrast, ABC assigns cost to activity using multiple cost drivers, providing a more accurate reflection of resource usage. The implementation of ABC in the case study reveals significant difference between product costs obtained by ABC and traditional costing method. ABC captured the cost of various activities involved in the production process and allocated them to the product based on their use of these activities. This allowed for a more precise calculation of the total cost of each product, considering not only direct material and labor, but also the cost of the value-adding activities. One of the strengths of ABC highlighted in the study is its ability to identify the classify value-added and non-value-added activities. By identifying non-value-added activities, organizations can focus on eliminating or reducing them, leading to cost saving and process improvement. However, implementing ABC requires additional effort and expense in obtaining the necessary information for the analysis. Collecting activity data and determining appropriate cost driver can be time-consuming and complex. For us to do that, despite this challenge, the study suggests that the benefit of accurate cost information outweigh the additional effort. Overall, the comparative analysis for this study case emphasized the limitation of traditional costing method in accurately capturing the true cost of product. ABC method provide a more comprehensive and accurate cost calculation mechanism by linking activities, resource, and cost object. It helps organizations make informed decisions regarding product pricing, process improvement, and resource allocation, ultimately enhancing their competitiveness in a global market.
Hi, and a very good day to Dr. Mahari and everyone who's watching. My name is Dania Ayani, matrix number 291296, and I will be explaining how activity-based costing (ABC) affect the profit of a company. Now, the main goal of using activity-based costing method is to increase the profitability and overall performance of an organization. How and why does this happen? It happens because ABC identify accurate overhead costs and cost drivers, leading to a more streamlined business processes. To clear things up, let me give you an example. When all direct and indirect costs are allocated to a product, managers can detect which business processes are performing well and which are inefficient. They can then streamline, or in simple words, organize these processes by allocating more resources to profitable activities and eliminating practices that are costly and wasteful. As a result of the ABC process, companies are able to manage manufacturing performance and improve the quality of their products and services. Hence, profitability is increased for these companies as a result of a more accurate product pricing. Hi, it's me again. Let's proceed to level of activities. It is important to understand how ABC cost information is different from traditional costing. We can see the difference through measure of activity. As you can see here, we have three groups of activities. The first one refers to the activities that are carried out for each unit of a product manufactured. The second group is called batch level activities, which means other activities that are performed for each batch of units. The cost of batch activities depends on the number of batches, not the number of units manufactured. The third group of activity is called product level activities. Once product level activities are applied, it will benefit all units of a particular product. Activity-based costing is based on actual performance, consumption, and expense data that is obtained from the company's current information system and is paired with the expertise of people who are directly involved in the distribution of goods or services. Here, costs are assigned to activities. The ABC offers information on where cost allocation begin, as well as the possible outcomes of various actions and decisions made by managers. Cost allocation in traditional costing involves a certain level of estimation. It does not concentrate on where or why costs happen, since it is very analytical and does not relate to the price of goods. Operational managers frequently find it difficult to comprehend, or in simple words, it is difficult for them to understand. Here we have a table that shows the difference between these two methods. These are basically the steps needed to be done according to each of the two methods: activity-based costing and traditional costing. So let us see here what we have on the screen. For activity-based costing method, we have identify and classify activities for the first step, and then second, we will be estimating the cost for the whole activity, and then we will compute a cost driver rate, and then we will apply activity costs using cost drivers that we compute in the third step just now. And for traditional based costing, we have 6 steps. The first is to identify indirect costs, and then we estimate the indirect costs, and then we choose our cost drivers, and then we will estimate value for the cost drivers. And the fifth step is to compute our overhead rate, and the last is to apply the overhead rate.
Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Liana Rashida binti Rasdi with metric number 288182. In this part, I will explain the differences between activity-based costing and traditional costing. As we know, both methods estimate overhead costs related to production and then assign this cost to production based on a cost driver rate. However, there are differences in the accuracy and complexity between the two methods. Firstly, in cost drivers. According to Carroll-Field, 1996, in the article, activity-based costing ABC provided managers with better visibility into business development and their cost drivers, allowing them to eliminate costs associated with non-value added activities and enhance existing development's efficiency. Meanwhile, for performance measurement, the volume was determined by cost drivers was based on a different kind of operational performance that reflected the efficiency and accuracy of the activity in question. Thus, they assisted in evaluating the effectiveness with exercises were completed when it was connected to the cost. Next, we have direct and indirect costs. Direct labors and machine hours were used in traditional costing systems to allocate costs to goods and services, said Banker 2008. The bases are associated with indirect and keep-up activities. This makes activity-based costing provided plan managers with a more structured approach to evaluate the expenses associated with specific activities used to keep up a product. In addition, the differences in cost objectives between activity-based costing and traditional costing is that activity-based costing methodology can be applied to cost objects except for the products, and indirectly, this allowed customer profitability to be analyzed and so provided management with a market-oriented view of how proceeds have been earned. We also have economics costing. Cooper and Kaplan 1991 or Itner 1999 indicate that activity-based costing has helped to capture the economics of production development more costly and provided more accurate costing data than traditional cost-based systems. Next, identifying work activities and costs. By classifying the work activities and its costs in relation to manufacturing a product, delivering a service or performing a process, activity-based costing helps to fill in the gaps of the traditional costing method. Lastly, the differences in variables and fixed costs between activity-based costing and traditional costing. The performance of activity-based costing differs from traditional costing because activity-based costing divides costs into those that vary with unit-level activities, batch-level activities, and facility-level costs. Traditional costing divides costs into variables and fixed categories. So, as we can see, activity-based costing is more complex and more accurate than traditional costing because this method first assigns indirect costs to activities and then assign the cost to products based on the product's usage of the activities rather than traditional costing, which is more simplistic and less accurate than activity-based costing that typically assign overhead costs to product based on an arbitrary average rate.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Nur Aina Sofia binti Muhammad Kamal and my metric number is 295091.
To begin with, I would like to be presenting about the advantages and disadvantages of activity-based costing. First and foremost, ABC will give more realistic and accurate production cost of specific time. According to Chen and Ben Airy in 2008, they argued that ABC helped the managers to become aware of original parameters that created demands and indirect and keep out resources which can identify and remove non-value adding activities. The next advantage is it can evaluate the efficiency of production and make improvement. This method allows the managers to assign value to indirect costs, treating them as if they were direct costs. By breaking down the indirect costs of each activity, they can make improvement. Manager can use the ABC method to evaluate things like management influence, efficient process, and the overall cost difference department. The last advantage of ABC is it will give you more accurate data for profit margin. Because ABC account for non-manufacturing costs or indirect costs that you may not have otherwise is considered, it can help with improving profit margin. Having more accurate profit margin can help the business leaders make important decisions. First and foremost, ABC were found to be expensive to use. In Malaysia, the increased cost of identifying multiple activities and applying large amounts of cost drivers deterred many organizations from using ABC. Secondly, it can require more resources to gather accurate data. Gathering data for individual products can be time-consuming and costly. Business may have to hire or assign team members for the task, affecting the payrolls, and you may also need to purchase data collection software. Some businesses choose to outsource the process, which can also cost the business. Last but not least, it can be more time-consuming. Instead of calculating total costs and dividing them equally over all products, team members have to evaluate the cost of each product manually. They have to go through the process of dividing product into different pools. Business may need to assign a team to this specific task, but they may also choose to outsource it. This can be a better method as this process usually requires a team of management level employees. Now, let's take a look about the advantage and disadvantage of the traditional costing. The first advantage of traditional costing is it applies one rate to the entire system. This system is quickly accommodate the high cost of machine or human labor into the finished product. Instead of incorporating multiple costs that must be calculated to determine an outcome, this system utilizes one rate for overhead allocation which applies to the entire business operation. The second one is it is cheap to implement. There are no fancy calculations required to determine the average overhead rate under the traditional costing. All you must do is calculate the amount of time it takes to produce a specific product, then you take the average rate of labor or machine use cost per hour, multiply it by the length of time necessary to create sellable goods and services. The last one is the reports generated by this calculation are often easier to read and understand because it puts everything into a dollar and cents category. For investors, employees, or other interested parties, the traditional costing system makes it possible to understand some of the basics of the company's financial picture. Firstly, they do not present non-financial information about small and medium enterprise. The traditional costing system provided trivial information regarding the factors that were significant to the customer like quality and service. It typically uses a single overhead pool. This would comprise of supply and maintenance expenses, allotment of management salaries, and also depreciation. Next, the cost of sales representative engaging in non-standard selling activities is frequently excluded from the performance review. This is predicament because most people would be persuaded to maximize whatever standards that was established as a performance standard. Singular outputs such as sales volume or gross profit are achieved at the end without regarding the actual cost of those activities and resulting erosion of profitability to the firm. The last one, it isn't always a helpful system, where the traditional costing does not show enough specific to identify where waste might be occurring within the system. The indirect costs of manufacturing product or providing services are not accounted under this system. It only looks at the overhead cost generally.
In conclusion, we can learn more about both activity-based costing (ABC) and traditional costing. First of all, activity-based costing has been implemented as a substitute to traditional costing. This shows that most organizations use activity-based costing method as the temporary costing system. Journey 1996 indicate that activity-based costing (ABC) is a method of measuring cost and performance of activity and cost objective. Both activity-based costing and traditional costing are equally competing product costing methods. Although many businesses had converted to the activity-based costing system (ABC), some companies continue to use the traditional costing system. This is because every method of costing has advantages and disadvantages. It is important for the organization in Malaysia to know clearly what they require to decide on which costing method to use. To choose which costing technique is the best for their organization must weigh the advantage and disadvantage of each. There is no such thing as the best costing method. This is only the most suitable costing method to use. That's all from us. Thank you.